Hi guys, so these stories keep coming in almost on a daily basis. Small business owners who voted for Brexit and then realize that it's going to destroy their industry or at least damage them financially. Now, there are some Brexit supporters, people who voted for Brexit, who have turned around and said, look, it was a mistake. I was lied to by Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage. They led me up the garden path. While there are other Brexiteers, or Brexit supporters, I should say, who still don't realize, or it doesn't seem that they realize, that it was a bad choice. It was a mistake to vote for this disaster. Here is an example of a fishing, a haulage company that exports fish from Wales, and she voted for Brexit. It cost her an extra £40,000. She was okay with that, and she'll explain why. But then we'll jump to the present day, where we realize the cost that she's going to suffer now. This report is from the 27th of September 2019.
This is the internals of the lorry.
Brexit has come at quite a cost for someone who voted for it. Have you quantified how much extra you're now spending at the moment?
About 40,000.
Preparing for a no-deal Brexit?
Yeah.
£40,000?
Yeah.
Did you imagine that's what you might be spending when you voted leave?
No.
Do you regret voting leave?
Not at all. Not at all.
Because some people might find that very strange, that you voted leave.
Yes.
And you're now in a situation where you are spending a huge amount of money.
I knew when I voted leave that it would directly affect my business, both my businesses, the farming and the shellfish. But I also believe that I'm not the important person here, that the whole nation is important. So for the greater good is why I voted out. And for my grandchildren and their futures, that's why I voted out.
So she voted out for ideological reasons. Now, I think she voted out because she was convinced by Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, this is for the greater good. Your business may take a bit of a hit, but it's worth it. Now, this is another case of somebody voting that's going to affect someone else. She's going to be directly affected by this. We're going to see the consequences in a moment. But remember, she said, I voted for my grandchildren's future. Your grandchildren will not have access to freedom of movement. You voted to take that away. You know, how do you sit down with your grandchildren when they're a little bit older? I don't know how old they are, if they were able to access freedom of movement. But you'll sit down with them and you say, I voted to take something away from you. You had an opportunity to go and live in France or Germany or Italy or Spain or anywhere else in the European Union. Now you can't. And I voted to take that away from you. Why? Well, because Nigel Farage said something. Now, remember, she voted for it. She took a £40,000 hit preparing for Brexit. She said it's still okay. I would put this down to this footballism that James O'Brien describes. In another way, you can also call it tribalism. I believe it's a type of ideology where people buy into a lie, they invest in the lie, and then to save face, they continue to accept the lie. I don't know all of her reasons for voting for Brexit. She said for the good of the country. I don't know what that means. Britain is worse off. But let's jump to now, January. This is the same lady. Let me just go up so you can see. This is the same lady. She said, I can't do this again. Miss Edwards, who exports shellfish from local fishermen, had sent a lorry to the continent via Portsmouth. She has spent 2 years preparing to export into the EU after Brexit and had been confident after this week's catch that she had all the documentation she needed. £48,000 has already been paid to a group of 25 fishers. Okay, so she prepared all the documentation. She paid the fishermen for their fish. She put it on a truck and she sent it to Portsmouth. But because of issues at the border, the consignment was stuck in Portsmouth for 24 hours. After boarding a ferry to Cayenne, it was then held by French customs for another 7 hours. Miss Edwards said that the importer in France had made a mistake on the document and he needed to complete. So he made a mistake on this document. This is another thing I've talked about before, and many other people have talked about. A border has two sides. So you can have everything perfect on your side, but if the customer, for example, doesn't have the documentation correctly, or if the customs officer on the other side makes a mistake, you suffer the consequences. Now, you can complain about that. You can ask for compensation or something, but at the end of the day, you don't control the other side of the border. You control your side, but you don't control the other side. Now, under the Single Market and Customs Union, there was no border. So you would just ship things directly to France, and there was none of this requirement. You voted to create more paperwork. You voted for this problem. Anyway, she goes on to say, I can't do this again this next week, she told the BBC Wales. I need a break. I can't leave the fishermen without incomes for long. She added, we're a tiny Welsh company. It's family run. We're fourth generation running it. We can't afford to take the hit. The businesswoman said it's not only her business affected, that there had been others in the queue for the ferry that had been refused. So we're a fourth generation running it. So she voted for Brexit. She voted for Brexit, in her words, to help her grandchildren. She took away freedom of movement from them. She voted to make it more difficult for her to export her goods to the EU. And this is helping her grandchildren. How the hell is this helping your grandchildren? I struggle to understand how this is. Now, she said it's to help her grandchildren. I don't know how that's going to help them. I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I get the impression that she voted for Brexit for some other reason. I don't know what I don't want to say what that other reason is. We can all imagine what that other reason is. But if you run a business and your principal market is the EU, why would you try to restrict your access to the EU? I can't fathom the reason behind that. Now, people outside the industry can say, well, I didn't know. I didn't know it's going to affect the fishing industry in this way. But if you work in the fishing industry, you have no excuse for saying, I didn't know it was going to be like this. She said at the beginning of the interview, yeah, I knew it was going to be like this. So she could have been honest there and said, yes, I understood. And for me, it didn't make any difference. But she can't sort of complain now that there's a hold up in France or there's a hold up at Portsmouth because she voted for that. I hope that this is going to be resolved. I would suggest that she puts pressure on Boris Johnson and his government to fix this, because they are the only ones who can fix this. They have to go to Brussels and sort something out. I don't know what else can be done. They can try and put pressure on the French to add more staff. But once again, the French can reply and say, it's not our problem. You voted to leave. You want to, really, I struggle to understand why Brexiteers thought it would be a good idea to give the French, for example, more power. Because the French could say, oh, I'm sorry, this document isn't correct. These products have to wait another few days. As far as I know, and I don't know completely, but as far as I know, on the French side, they haven't hired more staff. Or they've hired very few staff. They haven't extended the hours, the opening hours at the customs offices. They're not doing anything to help the British side, but they're under no obligation to do that because they didn't vote to leave the European Union. They didn't ask Britain to leave. The European Union on numerous occasions said, if you leave, you're going to suffer consequences. The response from Brexiteers, Project Fear, they need us more than we need them. And I'm still looking for reports on how businesses in the EU are suffering because of Brexit, but I can't find anything. If people can find me examples of how businesses in the EU are suffering, I'd like to hear it. But most businesses have just changed. Businesses that were relying on the UK have just switched to local companies or companies within the EU. Brexiteers lied to these people. In some cases, the people bought the lies. In other cases, they bought them and continue to maintain the lie. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?